All right, good afternoon, and welcome to Amplifying Institutional Nonprofit Visitor Engagement using Smart EV Charging Strategy Amenities with Juicy Power. Thank you for coming. This meeting is being recorded and transcribed. Now, the purpose of this meeting is to discuss a few things. Number one, what are some of the smart strategies that nonprofits such as institutions, municipalities, state, regional authorities, nonprofits, i.e., churches or nonprofit organizations, can use in order to smartly deploy EV chargers and make them useful for their organization? What can they do? We'll discuss those things in this presentation with Juicy Power. But first, let me tell you a little bit about myself, as well as a little bit about Juicy Power. Juicy Power is a Georgia-based EV charging consulting, installation, and management company. We also are a disadvantaged business enterprise registered within Georgia. Our focus is local/premium solutions for EV charging in and near Georgia communities. We've got over 20 years of experience, or I have over 20 years of experience, I should say, in advanced transportation engineering and strategy. There you see my picture on the right. Kwame Afori, Chief of Charge, and our team of experts has over 50 years of electrical contracting experience. We're focused mostly in the Atlanta area, but we also extend out into Georgia as well too. So let me tell you a little bit about today's electrifying topics. Some of the fundamentals each of these institutions need to know before installing EV chargers or even planning to install EV charging amenities, such that they're done in a smart way and in a sustainable way as well too. What are the top 5 things that they need to know in order to make that happen? And how to use a GSO framework. That's goals, situations, and options in order to plan smartly. But the first thing that we like to do, just to set a baseline, is to understand why it can be a challenge for nonprofit organizations like yours. So this video actually takes a lot of those initial concepts and lays down the framework of why some of the installations that we see aren't successful and how they could be better.
Electric vehicle charging stations. Do they have to suck?
I mean, they're usually located in some obscure, out-of-the-way spot that's difficult to find, or they're floating out in the middle of some open parking lot at the mall like this one. Once you eventually get here, it's all very underwhelming. Places like this lack any distinguishing characteristics. It's just some, futuristic-looking kiosk sprouting from the ground next to a parking space. To top it all off, with public chargers, you're taking a gamble on whether or not the charger will work in the first place.
For now, visiting a gas station is just more predictable experience. While your average gas station is not exactly a destination or a pinnacle of design excellence, the form of the gas station and what goes with it has developed for decades. While they're not all great, there have been a few pretty good ones over the years.
Either way, it seems that electric vehicles are the future, and charging our cars in spaces like this will be more and more a part of our everyday lives.
There are now more than 3 million EVs on the road and over 130,000 public chargers across the United States, and it's increasing at a rate of 60% per year.
So the question remains, do these spots have to suck? I don't think so. And in fact, the successful conversion of automobiles to electricity will to some degree depend on getting this part of the ownership experience right.
Not only do charging stations need to be safe, practical, and efficient, they need to be at places that us humans want.
So, of course, the answer is no, they don't have to suck. But you saw some of the problems or some of the issues that some of those priorly shown scenarios displayed. One was they had the charging station in a remote location far away from easy to reach amenities for drivers, which decreases utilization and thereby makes the charging station less sustainable. So that's one of the things that they should have thought about when actually creating that charging situation for that property. So what Juicy Power does, and you can see our logo on the right-hand side, is that we help property owners or nonprofits in this situation properly strategize on where to place those charging stations, how to deploy them to the public in order to make them useful and sustainable so they don't have to suck. So let's go over a few fundamentals as well too about the different levels of charging as well. Because unlike gas pumps, well, kind of like gas pumps, I should say, you have different octane levels for gas pumps. But in EV charging, you have different levels of EV charging that supply a certain amount of power to vehicles within a certain period of time. Essentially, it's slow, quick, and fast. So level 1, level 2, and level 3. This video will explain a little bit about level 1, level 2, and level 3, and what options are available to certain properties.
First off, there are 3 types of technologies used in EV charging stations: level 1, level 2, and level 3. Level 2 and 3 are probably the ones that we're talking about here. Level 1 is a charging using a 120 volt standard outlet, and it might take a day to charge an electric vehicle. Level 2 uses a 240 volt outlet and can charge an electric vehicle in about 4 to 8 hours. Level 3, though, is known as DC fast charging. It uses high voltage DC connection and can charge a car in 30 minutes or less. So level 3s are the kind of places that you might stop on a long road trip or while you're out to keep things juiced up a little bit. And they require a larger footprint and more complex infrastructure due to those higher power requirements.
Great. So we've talked about level 1, level 2, and level 3 charging here. Let's slide on to the next
First
slide.
off, there are 3 types of
To see what the difference is a little bit more closely in depth. Level 1 charging on average takes about 12 or more hours in order to essentially take a vehicle, an electric vehicle, a full battery electric vehicle from say 20% to 80, 90% of charge. State of charge is what we call that. Level 2 is a faster level of charging, but as you can see, it requires a higher voltage, 240 volts, which is available in most homes as well as businesses as well too. But it's not exactly the shaver outlet or the 115 volt outlet that you'll see within your normal, I should say, hooked up to your laptop or hooked up to your electric shaver. Your normal outlet that's in your house is pretty much 120 volts. And the level 2 outlet or level 2 charging takes 240 volts. So that's more of a drier type of voltage, if you will. As you can see, between level 1 and level 1 is already pre-existing in a lot of areas, but level 2 takes a little bit more installation cost in order to facilitate. So the average charging time for a level 2 outlet is between 1 and 4 hours. And then, of course, you have the high power, the fast charge, the DC fast chargers, which are level 3. And as you can see, yes, the charging times are much less. However, the cost of those is also much greater. For most of our clients, we think that level 2 is appropriate unless they're in a specific situation where they have interstate visitors or regional visitors on a frequent basis that can sustain and account for the cost of a level 3 charging, operation, and maintenance. So as you can see at point 4, the big thing is that location and use case matter. So what are some of the questions that you got to ask before starting? It can be very overwhelming as a nonprofit leader to say, I need to learn everything about electric vehicle charging. I need to know everything about infrastructure, construction, incentives, maintenance, operations, and sunset before I have to go in and make a decision. So we try to simplify that for you here at Juicy Power. and break it down to 5 questions, which you need to just start asking yourself as a foundation as you begin this journey. And for nonprofits, we've actually taken it down to 4 questions. So, what are the 4 questions that you need to ask? Number 1, why do you want EV charging at your institution? Number 2, what are the top use cases that you think you'll want to support? Number 3, how much electrical supply will you need? And number 4, how will you pay for the charging infrastructure? Now, you don't have to have the answer to those questions when you start off, but these are questions that you should know that exist in order to help guide your decision, help guide your discovery journey, and things that you'll need to consider as you figure out what type of charging and how many um, charging stations to actually install. So, understanding your goals. That comes down to understanding your why. So, at this point of the presentation, or the discussion, I should say, we like to launch a user poll. And if you go to your bottom right of your screen in Google Meet, you'll be able to see a poll that will be launched momentarily. So, the poll asked, why do you want EV charging at your location? And there's 4 options there. So feel free to go to the bottom right of your presentation screen. You'll see the shapes down there on the bottom right. There's a triangle, a square, and a circle that are aligned together. Click on that and click on the poll. And then also vote in the poll as well, too. And we'll see how everybody votes and reveal those answers momentarily. But there's 4 options there. Here are some of the common reasons. Providing a free amenity to visitors. Why is that? We'll go into that in a minute. Provide a paid amenity for employees and visitors. Increasing institutional income. And supporting environmental/energy goals for our organization/property. Each of these different reasons require different strategies. And we'll go into those strategies a little bit later. So, as you can see, electric vehicle adoption rate to support why you might want to install electric vehicle charging stations at your property. You can see the EV adoption rate is increasing in the US geometrically over the next 30 years. Here we've got the market share of light electric vehicles in the United States from 2010 to 2050. At about 2023, it was at about 7% in terms of the percentage of sales. And as you can see, over the next 20 to 30 years, that's going to double or even triple conservatively to 3 times what it is right now. So as you can see, it's a smart investment knowing that many of your employees, many of your visitors may be driving either a full electric vehicle or a hybrid vehicle, a plug-in hybrid vehicle that can utilize electric vehicle charging stations and making your property or your workplace a more accessible location, a sustainable location with rewards. And here's another chart that supports the adoption rate in the US. And this is for plug-in hybrid electric vehicles. Those are otherwise known as PHEVs, and battery electric vehicles, otherwise known as BEVs. Now, as you can see, the sales forecast extends from 2021 to 2030 here. And the share in the US extends from 2021 at 3.39% all the way up to 2030, where you're getting up to about 29.5%. So, as you can see, The trend is increasing, and it's a good time to strategize and think about taking advantage. So we talked about the GSO framework. So the first letter in GSO is G, and that's understanding your goals. What are the top EV charging use cases you think you want to support? Are you going to primarily install your electric vehicle chargers to service employees? Or will they be to service visitors? Or both? But who's the majority? Who are you serving? Will it be students that are coming into campus? Or is there another reason? Another part of goals could be income. And we talked about free or paid in the prior slide. Well, there's two sides to that. If you do free, you're talking about indirect benefits or indirect profit, as we like to call in this market. The reason why we call it indirect profit is because you get increased visitor attraction and increased employee retention or tenant retention using free options for electric vehicle charging, which are commonly available for level 1 and level 2 charging. In fact, for level 2 charging, the cost of providing free EV charging can equate to the cost of providing free coffee for a year. So imagine that you're getting more visitors, more engagement, not having to rehire, more mobility, increased sustainable and increased environmental benefits for the cost of a cup of coffee. Well, you can't beat that with a baseball bat. That's essentially increased productivity for your institution. Secondly, there's a direct profit motive. Say you are a nonprofit institution that could use a little bit more money in order to finance more programs. Now, we're not saying, well, it depends on your location. We're not saying that you're going to be able to build a new school off of it, but perhaps there might be an after-school program or something that could use a little bit more change. Well, some direct profit with the proper strategies and the proper location and scenario can provide a little bit more organizational income and can offset the EV charging cost for the year. S, being the next letter in GSO, understanding your situation, infrastructure, and funding. So your situation includes your electrical supply to your property. Do you have adequate power supply for the type of charging you want? For level 2 and level 3 charging, the difference is that you need different backhaul. You need a more advanced backhaul, more advanced infrastructure to support level 3 charging. So if you have that, say if you are a large university, you likely have that at several locations within your campus that might be able to support level 3 charging. However, if you're a library, for instance, you probably would need additional investment in order to support level 3 charging, and level 2 charging might be more practical. So understanding your situation is very important. Do you have the electrical supply to support EV charging? Do you have the electrical capacity to support EV charging? And how will you pay for the charging infrastructure if upgrades are needed? So understanding your situation, understanding your current budget is critical. And finally, once things are installed, are you able to create a sustainable business plan that ensures that the EV charging, if provided as an amenity, is manageable from a budget standpoint? If it's provided as a profit generating center, is it priced appropriately such that it does what it's intended to do? So Juicy Power also helps with creating that business plan, that business approach, and strategizing and managing that throughout the life cycle of the asset. Part of understanding the S in the situation is funding. There's various means of assistance. You have local and utility EMC incentives that, depending on what county you're in, what city you're in, and what state you're in, you can access. State, local jurisdiction rebates, meaning that you can get rebates for not only design, but also you can access rebates for the equipment, the EVSE, the electric vehicle supply equipment that you're installing. Federal tax credits are also available for equipment and design as well too. And grant programs. There may be various grant programs that Juicy Power can help you access as well. So O, what's O for? O is the last letter in the GSO framework. And it's for understanding your options and adjusting. And the best thing to do is to weigh your options. You've done the homework. You thought about your 4 critical questions. Now you have to weigh your options. And one of the best ways to weigh those options is to contact an expert at Juicy Power and use a Juicy Power roadmap to think about what are the next steps we need to take in order to make this happen. So how can you do that? How can you contact an expert? Well, number one, you can scan this QR code on the screen and contact us. That's our website, www.juicypower.com. Or you can scan the QR code, which will take you straight to a site that will allow you to contact us via email, or even like do some estimates that you'd like to figure out, well, what the business plan could look like. There's a number of options on that site. But the important thing is to do either of these things, to contact an expert. As part of the option, or as part of the options, knowing your options, you should know the process as well too. Here you can see our 10-step process, or 10 or 11-step process that our customers and our clients use at Juicy Power as part of the Charge Connect system. First, we onboard you. We take you through a consultation and estimate step in terms of like evaluating your property. We also do an on-site assessment. After the assessment, we do the full analysis and estimate. We come to an agreement and then enter into a project planning stage with you. After the project is planned and the plan is agreed to, equipment acquisition occurs, and then as well as permitting too. Finally, the installation and commissioning stage occurs, and operations management and maintenance commence after the station is operational. Some of the concepts that you'll need to know about. Pricing. There's various ways to price, how to offer electricity to visitors and employees that are charging at your location. There's also ways to ensure that the station is used responsibly as well as equitably within your community. Certain things such as idle fees, fees for overstaying at an EV charging station might be necessary to help control that. Maximizing, you want to maximize your time. You want to maximize the utilization at the station. So it's good for visitors and they have a reasonable expectation that a station will be open and usable when they arrive at your location. You want to encourage desired usage behavior, and you want to avoid unintended consequences as well too. Hopefully it never comes down to this, but you may need to digitally ban abusive customers. You may have to enforce some towing, and you just want to make sure that all those things are outlined in your contracts in order to ensure that they're taken care of after the station is installed, and how and who is responsible for doing what, essentially. So now you're understanding your options, you're adjusting. You might want to use a roadmap. We outlined a roadmap earlier in this presentation. That's a Juicy Power roadmap, but it will help a leader like you understand the process and plan the journey into operating an EV charging station successfully. So preparation, design, installation, maintenance, and management. Those are the 5 critical steps there. So I'd like to thank you for joining us today in discussing essentially the critical things that nonprofit and institutional leaders need to know in order to install efficient, quality, and useful electric vehicle charging stations. Here are some next steps. Use a roadmap. Contact us. There's our email, info@juicy-power.com. And enjoy our next webinars. Most notably, we've got how to access incentives for business and organizational EV chargers coming up on August 2nd, and a little bit more about the process, preparation, process, and planning for providing an EV charging amenity on August 23rd.